Hello. Today we're going to talk about ADHD and routines and habits and all of those super helpful tips and tricks and tools that neurotypical people tell us will transform our lives. And how frustrating and annoying hearing those things is. And also, what are some ways that as neurodiverse people we can find some tools and techniques and tips that do actually work for us, work for our neurodiverse brains, rather than trying to fit into the neurotypical boxes using the neurotypical tools and constantly failing and ending up feeling like absolute crap, right? So if I had $1 for every time some well-meaning person said to me, have you thought about putting some routines in place? It's got to the point now where I hate that word routine. I hate it with a passion, along with the word should. And so, because very often when we try and impose structure on ourselves, our inner being goes, no, not gonna, can't make me. I used to have that theme song of, not going to do what you tell me. That's just kind of used to pump in the back of my brain every time I tried to tell myself to do something. So what I've learned is that I need to be very strategic in terms of what I ask of myself when it comes to setting up. I'm not going to say routines, right? Because I hate that word. So I try and think of them as rhythms instead, right? So there's an ease and a flow and a flexibility to a rhythm in my mind that isn't there with a routine, right? A routine feels very structured and closed and kind of dictatorial, right? Whereas a rhythm feels more flowing and more kind of like musical and flexible. So I look to try and create rhythms in my life. And I would like to tell you that I can create a rhythm, just by going, I'm going to create a rhythm around getting up in the morning. And then I think about it and I write it down and then magically the rhythm unfolds. No, that's not how it happens, right? It takes a lot of warm up for me to even begin to approach creating a rhythm. And I think the warm up is something that we don't give enough attention to, right? We don't understand the importance of the warm up. So the warm up is kind of creating the want. We already know about the need, right? Our mornings are a clusterfuck. We're like, nah, we need something different, right? So we're looking to create we already have the need, but what we're trying to create is the want and a desire to do the thing. So I'll give you an example. I, a few years ago now, decided that it would be a good thing to eat breakfast. I'm not going to lie, I was in my 50s and I hadn't quite mastered the process of eating breakfast. And my inner child, who had been told to eat breakfast many times by many people and was like, nah, can't make me, was like, so I started off having chocolate fish. Now, if you're in New Zealand, you know what a chocolate fish is. It's like a chocolate-covered marshmallow confection, right? So definitely not on the list of approved breakfast food. But it was something, yeah? And it was something that made me feel a little bit naughty and rebellious because I do like that. And it was also something that made it feel like a treat rather than like a good thing. It was like, oh, look at me treating myself. And so I ate chocolate fish for breakfast for quite some time. We're talking months, right? Not weeks, not days, it was months. And then eventually, and as I started doing that, I started trying to tune into my body a little bit more and be a bit more aware of my body. And I was like, after I eat the chocolate fish and have the coffee in the morning, I don't feel great, like I do feel that there is a way that I could probably eat something that might leave me feeling better. So I then started to have some toast or some porridge or some muesli. And then I was like, but I like So then I started to have things like avocado on toast. This is why we don't own a house, right? Because I had avocado on toast. Or I might have eggs, or I might make a frittata with leftover vegetables. But I kind of made having breakfast into something that wasn't routine, right? I would specifically choose something each day that felt like it would not only nourish my body, but nourish my soul as well. You know, it's like, oh yeah, this feels really nice. And so eventually it got to the point where one time my sister-in-law was staying and she goes, "You're a real breakfast girl, aren't you?" And I'm like, "I am," right? So I'd gone from being really struggling with the idea of breakfast to meeting my want, warming up to the want, meeting my want, and then developing my want into something that actually ticked all the boxes in terms of what my long-term goals were of healthy eating and all of that kind of stuff. But it wasn't a fast process, and it was a lot of mental gymnastics to get to the point of moving the need into a want, and then into a want strong enough that I wanted to take action, and then being present to myself enough for me to adjust it and fine tune it until I found the rhythm that worked for me in that. So with having a rhythm, that doesn't mean that every day the first thing that I do when I get up is have breakfast, right? Some days I'm tired and I don't feel like eating when I first get up. And I might go and do my first client session and then have breakfast, right? Sometimes I might have brunch. But the point is, I eat regularly in the morning, every day, something that makes my heart and my body happy. So that's just one example of taking, a should and turning it into a want, and then finding a rhythm to make that happen. I'm going to do a whole lot more little videos on this process of how we take things that feel really kind of restrictive and coercive and like, we should, and turning them into ways of doing things that actually feel good and we feel happy to do them. So hopefully this is helpful. Love to hear any comments or questions or any feedback that you've got about this process, and I'll see you next time.